In 2022, a team of lighthouse specialists from ICC Commonwealth arrived to the Falkland Islands with an inspection on the Cape Pembroke Lighthouse. They did condition assessment documenting all the cracks in the structure, and the engineering team provided a report with repairs recommendations. And now they came back to work on the long-awaited restoration of this historic building.
The base of the lighthouse was filled with concrete. When they constructed it, a portion of the cast iron is embedded into the base of the concrete. The interior portion of the lighthouse was filled monolithic with concrete as ballast to the base of the lighthouse. Problem is the coefficient of expansion between the concrete and the cast iron is dissimilar, so with all the environmental changes from season to season, that's where all the cracks originated from. So part of the restoration phase is to ensure that once the repairs are done, that it can go on for an indefinite period of time without suffering similar damage due to the same root cause. So we'll re-pour the concrete on the interior of the lighthouse and introduce expansion joints that allow both materials to go through all the climatic changes without any issues.
The weather and the wind has definitely made it somewhat difficult to work here on site, but we've been helped greatly by local contractors, Richard Short and his crew, and Paul Ellis, as they built us the full enclosure at the base of the lighthouse so that we can work irregardless of the elements outside. So we've been able to complete all of the paint removal up to about 18 feet, and that enclosure that was built by the local contractors has been a huge help.
Most of the structure, except for where the cracks are that need to be repaired, it's unknown how long that's all going to take. We'll get as much crack repair done with our subcontractor while we're here. Then we'll leave the tools and equipment for the local crew to continue with that work. We may have our group come back on a second trip depending on how things kind of work with the local guys.
The specialists are contracted for 6 weeks of work on the lighthouse restoration, but the team is expecting to come back around May this year. The second trip is largely scheduled around some of the custom components that need to be made and shipped down to the islands, such as the glass part on the top of the lighthouse.
Our department within ICC Commonwealth specializes in historic preservation. About 80% of what we do is lighthouse restorations. We try to be as comprehensive as possible, but at times it is beneficial to bring in specialists, for example, to repair the cracks in the cast iron and also for especially the lens work. It takes a certain hand that can handle those Fresnel lenses, because they're very delicate and basically priceless. So we also have a former U.S. Coast Guard certified lampist, James Woodward, coming down, who will dismantle the lens at the top of the lighthouse in the lantern room. And we're at that point waiting on direction from the Falkland Islands Museum and National Trust as to what they would like to do with the lens, the Fresnel lens, once it's removed from that lantern room. Whether they would like to create a museum display so that that can be showcased in the museum itself, and then we would be able to put a LED beacon up at the top so that the lighthouse itself could then be automated and the light can continue to shine from the top.
The restoration work has just begun, but discussions on the future of the lighthouse is already underway.
The restoration is going to take a couple of years, probably. Once it's done, obviously we would really like to see it opened up to the public. There are conversations to be had though, because whilst we'd want to make it a visitor attraction, we'd also like to see it working again. And there are conversations that need to be had as to what would be permitted if it was actually an operating lighthouse. The lighthouse belongs to government, but we are very much hoping that once the restoration is complete, it will become a National Trust property, so then it will be our responsibility to make sure that a maintenance plan is put in place, and we keep on top of that as opposed to it just being neglected again. The lighthouse is definitely the one thing that we can save. You know, Bodie Cook Bridge is definitely past that. The Lady Elizabeth, again, we're just losing everything. But the lighthouse is the one thing that we can save and should save and are saving. So yeah, it's really exciting, and I think not just the restoration itself, but also just to have it working again would just make everybody really happy.
Lighthouse restoration was on FIG and Dockyard Museum's radar for about 7 years, and this project has been on hold due to high costs. But thanks to financial support from Boucher Fishing Company Limited, Consolidated Fisheries and Falkland Islands government, the lighthouse restoration is finally underway.
It's great to see it actually starting. I mean, I've grown up around here in Stanley, and this has always been a feature of it, and to see it being restored and brought up to its former glory is going to be fantastic. We're given the tour really quickly by Richard Short, and I met some of the guys and seen the work already starting. It's really excited to see it underway. Things like the lighthouse are just iconic. I can't wait to see it completely restored. I think it's essential that we try and do what we can to restore our heritage.
Lighthouse restoration has just begun, and it will take time until we see the lighthouse in its full glory. But at least we can know for sure that this historic monument will be preserved.